Hi everyone, and welcome to the IntervYOUs, a series where we interview different people about their personal experiences with self and body image. Our special guest today is Mr. John Lindo. I'm so honored that he's talking with us today because he is an internationally recognized, award-winning ballroom, western, and swing dancer who dances and he teaches all over the world. I first heard about John on the internet where I saw videos of him dancing, and he was just like one of the ballroom dancers that you see on TV, but he isn't your average ballroom dancer. He is a teddy bear of a guy who shakes it and he gets the crowd going just as much, if not more, as the traditional performers you see on Dancing with the Stars. So, John, thank you so much for talking with me today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you got into dancing?
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Abbie. So I got into dancing. I first started with country and western dancing back in its heyday when it was really popular. And I actually started because a couple of friends and I went out to a bar and we were having some drinks, and the instructor needed some extra guys to come down on the floor and kind of help them out. So she pretty much shamed us into coming down onto the floor. We need guys, come on down. Her name is Debbie Paulus, and to this day, I still, believe that had she not done that, I probably would not be sitting here talking to you. So we went down, we had a good time, we took a beginner two-step lesson, and then we actually had a lot of fun, so we went back the following Friday, we kept going back, and then after a while, I just ended up really liking partner dancing. I had never done partner dancing. I had always done just, at the club, just grooving and, with my own little, space. And then I actually ended up liking partner dancing, and I kept going back. I kept taking lessons. I kept going to the group lessons. And then I was at an event with some friends, and they signed me up without letting me know that they were signing me up for a dance contest that was happening. Oh. I was just there to cheer some of them on. And then all of a sudden I hear the MC call my name, and I'm like, can't be calling my name. I didn't sign up. And my friends were like, yeah, we signed you up. You got to go. And so I was terrified and freaked out at the same time. But then I had all these people in this ballroom like cheering my name, so you had to go up. And so I went up. I danced. I got this lovely lady named Robin from Dallas. This is when I used to live in Dallas. And we actually won first place. So that kind of started my competition career, but my dancing career started because my friend Ted and I went to a bar, got a couple of drinks, and started doing some country and western dancing.
Well, that is not your average story at all.
No.
That's hilarious.
I didn't start taking lessons in a ballroom. It was at a bar, and I think because that atmosphere made me feel a little bit more comfortable and more welcome, and I really wasn't there to just learn dancing. I was there to just hang out with my friends and just kill a couple of hours before I had to go home. Really just, I think, made it more easy.
Well, I would ask how you got into dance, but, you just told us the whole story. And I was actually, so I guess this isn't something that sprouted from a young age. This is actually something that you kind of took you by surprise that you liked dancing.
Yeah, I didn't, it wasn't from a young age. I was actually in my mid-20s when I first started partner dancing.
Right.
Prior to that, I had done nothing other than just go to the clubs and just freestyle. So that was,
That's cool too.
Yeah, and that, and I used to love freestyling. I used to love dancing by myself. Like, a song would come on, and my friends would be sitting at the bar, and I would just go dance on the floor by myself. And who was around me, I'm just going to dance. And I care whether I look like a fool or not. Sometimes I bump into people and the mood start dancing. But yeah, in general, I love music, and I just love to just, get out there and do my thing. So yeah, and then partner dancing was new to me in my late, like I said, in my 20s. So, prior to that, it was just basically just doing some solo dancing. And nothing like, going to take lessons. Just, I guess you could just say it was just, I was just a street dancer, just off the street, just watching people do something, and I would try to copy it, and that would be pretty much it.
Oh, you're very talented.
Okay.
So I'm a dancer, as well.
Yes.
I don't do ballroom, but I do dance. And I don't necessarily have the traditional dance body either. I'm more on the shorter side, and I'm not super tall and lean. So got to work with what I've got, of course. But I am proud. I'm proud that I don't have the traditional dance body because I've had the opportunity to kind of move my body in different ways and stylize my own kind of ballet, my own kind of tap, my own kind of jazz. So when people are watching shows like Dancing with the Stars, they see the male dancers that are super skinny and they have the tight pants and the sparkly, flaily shirts. But the thing that made me so impressed with you is that when I came across your videos, you don't look like that necessarily, but you shake it just as hard as all those other guys do. So has not having that traditional dancer body affected you getting into the competition scene?
I would have to say no. I'm pretty lucky that the community that I generally specialize in and dance in is called West Coast Swing, which is a form of Lindy Hop, and there's also shag, and there's also a bunch of other swing dances in there, and one of them is called West Coast Swing. And even though I started in country and western, I transitioned over to primarily just dancing West Coast Swing. And West Coast Swing in this community embodies everybody, all shapes, sizes, different genders, different ethnicities. And for me, it was more about the group of people that I hung out with that really made me feel comfortable. Yeah, I mean, like my first contest, I probably would never have signed up because I figured I don't look like those guys on TV, right? I'm not going to rip my shirt off and have glitter all over my body, and I don't fit into a size 1 pants, right? So I probably would not have thought of myself as a West Coast Swing, competitor. But I think because my friends just saw that I had a lot of fun, that I was just love dancing, and they actually signed me up. And they were like, the only way we're going to get him to ever compete is just to sign him up without him knowing. So I do attribute my competition lifestyle, I guess I should say, to my friends who really saw me and just said, just who you are, just be yourself on the floor. And so yeah, when you do see my videos, I'm always smiling. I'm always having a good time because I really do enjoy dancing and I really love it, and I am having a good time. Like somebody once asked me, "Are you always having a good time?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, the day I stop having a good time, I will stop dancing and I will do something else. I'll go take up golf or I'll go play tennis or something. But until then, I'm going to continue dancing because that's what I love to do. It's my passion. It's my kind of like release from life because, life gets stressful. So when you're on the dance floor dancing either by yourself or with a partner, that's it. You're just there. It's just the two of you. You're just listening to that piece of music. And so, yeah, so for me, you're probably right. I mean, and most people who see me don't think I'm a dancer at all, right? I could walk in and you have another dancer or a skinnier person next to me, and you would say, okay, which of these two is a dancer? And they will point to the skinny person, right? And not generally the oversized gentleman. But, the fact is that I embrace who I am, right? And I just have a good time with it, right? I have a good time with dancing in general and just, hanging out with people and dancing to music, so.
Right. So I know that you said that traditionally has not had an impact on you getting into the dancer scene. But being that you don't have that traditional dancer body type like you had just mentioned, had you ever had a moment where you kind of didn't feel so great about yourself, or you had some self-doubt or some negative self-image, especially when you're dancing? So, for example, I felt before that in ballet, I might not look as graceful as people that are, let's say, more vertically blessed than I am. But that forces me to work harder on lengthening and extending through all of my movements. So how do you handle those moments of negativity?
Yeah, and, it's really more about, for me, it's about myself, right? Yeah, absolutely. I am probably the worst critic to watch myself dance because I hate watching myself dance. Because I'm always like, oh my God, look at your leg line. Look at your leg. You could have extended it. You could have pointed it. And yeah, I mean, there's also, there's always this in the back of my head, little voice that says, as I'm about to compete, are you good enough to compete? And so for me, how I approached the competition floor was that I was not going to be, number one in the world championships, right? I mean, that takes a lot of work, and I'm just not willing myself to put that much work into it. Now, could I? Absolutely. But for me, it's more about the fun. And so, there are some times that, absolutely I'll be dancing, and I get off the floor, and I was like, I don't feel so good about this dance, or, my shirt was too short, did I lift it up and show my stomach, right? And there's always that negativity part. So I always have to, pretty much make sure that I stick to what to my core belief, which is I'm in this to have fun and to entertain people. That's my job, right? People paid money to come and see me dance, so I better put on a show, right? I can't go out there and be all depressed because people are going to ask for their money back. So for me, it's more about making sure that I deliver a product and that product is what people want. And I have to believe in myself. And there are days that I get up, and my body hurts, and I'm like, I do not want to go downstairs in the ballroom, and I do not want to compete. But the minute I get out of my room, I just have to kind of give myself a little pep talk and say, okay, this is what you signed up for. This is what you do. This is what you love to do. Remember that. And so then that kind of, flips that switch, and then I get into that mode.
Right.
But there's always every dancer that I know.
I get it.
One friend who is, an amazing dancer, always, kicks himself because he doesn't think he's amazing. And he's probably, the best dancer that we have in our community, but he constantly questions himself. And I think everybody does that. Wow. Otherwise, I think if you don't, you come out a little too cocky, like a little too self-absorbent, and people notice that in you, and people tend to, judge you by that.
Well, like you said, we're all our own worst critics, and sometimes that pushes us to be the best that we can be, and sometimes that can be a good thing, and sometimes we should know that we're all super talented. So I know that we were just talking about something a little bit more negative, but I have to ask, what are you most proud about in your career as a dancer? I mean, you're so talented, so clearly you must have had a lot of triumphant moments. So what's your favorite?
I think my favorite is I was dancing, and I have a lot of great moments, but one of my favorite moments is that I was dancing in a competition, and luckily I had, and this from a very young age, I was taught by a really good friend of mine who is, kind of a stylist. He was like, always wear clothes that flatters you. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, you're a tall guy, you need to wear long shirts, because, and now it's my thing. When I put on a shirt that I'm buying, I always do the test. I always raise my arms, because, when we're dancing, we raise our arms to make sure that the, belly gut doesn't show. So if my belly button's showing, can't buy that shirt, right? Even though I may love it. So luckily I was wearing a long shirt during this competition, but I was dancing and my pants split in the middle of the back, right? All the way. And I did not realize that they had split. And so the crowd, I think, is kind of like, and so I'm dancing and I felt like something was weird. And I looked back at my other friends who were sitting there getting ready to compete, and I mouthed off, are my pants split? And my friend was like, and then the minute I turned around to the crowd, I kind of just like did this, and the whole crowd just started laughing. And for me, then I just kept dancing forward. I never turned my back towards the crowd because I didn't want to see my boxers. So, of course, my dance partner, I had no idea what was going on. I just kept going from one side, and she's wondering, why are you sending me back and forth and not going around? And then when the song ended, all the male competitors came around me, kind of huddled around me and escorted me out so nobody could see me. And then while the other competitors were dancing, I went to my room, changed my pants, came down, and danced in the final. And everybody was like, and I think that moment made me realize that, you just gotta think things that are going to be negative, like your pants are splitting, your shoe falls off, and you can stop and freak out. I mean, had I stopped and freaked out, I think the audience would have been like really, sad for me. But instead, they were like, oh, my God, he is actually having a good time with us, and he knows his pants are split, and he's still going. And so I got a huge standing ovation, and I think that was one of my triumph moments that actually flipped the switch in me that said, this is about the fun, this is about entertaining people, and that's why I do that.
Well, that's amazing, because it's always the moments where people would think that we would get upset where we show just how positive we are that people really admire, especially your pants splitting in the middle of a dance. That is something that's truly admirable for you just to keep going. So kind of regarding getting into dance, like you said that you were kind of abruptly put into dance. What would you tell somebody who, let's say, not exactly was put into it abruptly, but had seen it and really wanted to get into it, but they felt that they, let's say, didn't have the traditional dancer body, and so that they were nervous about getting into it, maybe specifically ballroom, but any dance in general, really, what would you tell that person that's not confident enough to do so?
Yeah. I would say to them, because I've actually had friends who have tried to get into the West Coast swing scene, which is where I'm primarily focused on. Give it a try, right? Try it once. I mean, I've had a friend one time that her and I were standing backstage, and she was sitting next to me, and she was getting to go on next because it was her and her department. And she was saying, she's like, I think I'm going to puke. And I'm like, okay, well, if you have to go in the back and puke, go puke, and then come back out. But maybe if you do that all the time, maybe this is not for you. Maybe you shouldn't compete. There are people who love to compete, and there are people who don't. But you won't know it until you try it. And you've got nothing to lose, right? I mean, what? Your pants are going to split? That happened, right? Your shoe is going to come off? That has happened. It's how you deal with those moments that define how you're going to continue on. I mean, I've seen people who have had really bad dances, and they quit, right? They quit, they stop dancing, and they lose the passion because maybe they weren't in it for the right reason. Maybe they were in it for the glory of it, and that's the wrong reason to dance, right? You should dance about what you feel in your body, what you hear in the music. You shouldn't be looking for accolades and glory. You should dance for yourself. I mean, people say to me, do you think you're ever going to stop dancing? And I'm like, no, I plan on being 90 and still dancing, right? I see these videos of these older people dancing, and I'm like, that's me. I want to be that age and with my walker out there just grooving, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that there are, you just have to take a chance. And I know that's scary because people say, well, take a chance is huge. It's a big chance. What if I fall down? So what if you fall down? You get up, right? And luckily, hopefully you don't go in there by yourself. You go there with a friend or two friends who, if you fall, they're going to come up and help you, right? They're going to help you up and either, carry you out if you need to be carried out, or, just pat you on the back and say, try it again. So I think if you have a good support system, I think you can accomplish anything.
Well, I would love to see 90-year-old John Lindo dancing on stage with a walker. I think that would be an amazing video to see. I look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much for being on here. This was an amazing interview. You are so inspiring and definitely fun to watch. Mr. Lindo, if people would like to learn more about you, if people would like to, let's say, take a lesson with you, where could they find more about you?
Sure. I have a website. It's called johnlindo.com. It has my schedule on there where I'm going to be all over the world. It has a contact form that, contact John, and you can fill it out and, send me your info or ask about where I'm going to be. I travel 48 weekends a year out of the whole year. So I'm usually primarily a lot overseas in Europe, but I do a lot of stuff in the States as well. So if you want to get a hold of me and I'm going to be in your area and you want to touch base with me, that's the best way to do it. Just go to johnlindo.com and just either do the contact form or just look at my calendar.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This concludes our interview with Mr. John Lindo. We will see you in the next interview. Bye.